Today is Monday, July 14th. We'll tell you about more floods hitting the Texas Hill Country, a new backlash over the response to the first flooding that ended in disaster. Also, what a federal judge decided about racial profiling during the immigration crackdown, and how a couple of America's largest trading partners are responding to new tariffs. Plus, why the government is getting behind a doctor accused of fraud, what it takes to really be considered wealthy these days, and how this year's Wimbledon finals made history. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Storms brought another round of dangerous flooding in parts of Texas, still working to recover from the catastrophic 4th of July floods. Texans in a few different counties had to be evacuated yesterday, and dozens of people had to be rescued. Authorities went door to door to some homes after midnight to let people know of the risk, and the search efforts for Hill Country flood victims had to be suspended. As of early this morning, rain is still falling, but search teams are hoping to be able to get back at it later today. The death toll from the 4th of July floods is now up to at least 132, including dozens of children, and authorities believe 170 people may still be missing. The flood was far more severe than the 100-year event FEMA had envisioned, and it moved so quickly that it caught a lot of people off guard. Officials are now under scrutiny about what steps were taken to adequately warn people. When President Trump visited Texas on Friday, he was asked what he would say to the impacted families who wanted to know about the lack of warnings, and he said everyone did an incredible job and that, quote, only an evil person would ask a question like that. FEMA is also facing backlash over its response after the floods. News outlets like the New York Times got documents that say 2 days after the flooding, FEMA did not answer nearly 2/3 of calls to its disaster assistance line, meaning thousands of flood survivors were not able to get through. They cite sources who say the issue was the agency had fired hundreds of contractors at call centers on July 5th, one day after the floods. Reports also say FEMA has been slow to activate certain teams that coordinate response and search and rescue efforts. But the Homeland Security Department insists no one was left without assistance. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem calls the reports fake news. As for FEMA's acting administrator, he hasn't made any public appearances since he took the job in May. Of course, the Trump administration has spoken openly about wanting to overhaul FEMA. Stay tuned. A wildfire is burning through part of Arizona near Grand Canyon National Park. Dozens of buildings have been destroyed so far, including the historic Grand Canyon Lodge, the National Park Service administrative buildings, and visitor facilities. A water treatment facility also burned, causing a chlorine gas leak, and firefighters had to evacuate. Thankfully, no one has been reported hurt, and fire crews have since been able to make some progress. But parts of the national park are still closed. Canadian wildfires are still burning as well. In fact, they've scorched nearly 4,000 square miles, which is the most land burned in 30 years of online record keeping. Thousands of Canadians have had to evacuate their homes, and some unhealthy air has drifted into much of the upper Midwest here in the U.S. Once again, a federal judge has ruled against part of President Trump's immigration crackdown. This time, the judge said the government could no longer use racial profiling to carry out indiscriminate immigration arrests. It's a practice that's been heavily criticized over the last few months. Authorities have been stopping and detaining people of Latino descent and asking them to prove their citizenship, even though there's no other reason to suspect that they're in the country illegally. Now, the judge's ruling says authorities cannot rely solely on someone's race, accent, or the fact that they're speaking Spanish. The White House has already promised to appeal, saying no judge should have the authority to dictate immigration policy and undermine the will of the American people who voted for President Trump. On a broader scale, the Trump administration has defended its crackdown as an enforcement of immigration laws. So expect this fight to continue. President Trump is now promising steep tariffs on two of America's largest trading partners. He published letters on social media addressed to the leaders of the European Union and Mexico that said a 30% tariff on imports would start August 1st. Both the EU and Mexico responded by calling the tariffs unfair and disruptive. But they've both said they'll keep negotiating with the U.S. for a broader trade deal. The EU even decided to delay retaliatory tariffs on American goods in an effort to give the negotiations more time. So far, the U.S. has made preliminary trade agreements with Britain, China, and Vietnam. Dozens of other letters have gone out, imposing new rates on both large and small trading partners. Investors say the tariffs Trump has announced are higher than expected, but for now, the stock market is still doing well. More news still ahead, but first we want to take a break to talk about our sponsor. If you have a business idea, one of the simplest ways you can start to gauge interest in what you're offering is to create a website. Even if you don't have the actual product, service, or content yet, you can still give people an idea of what it's all about, start spreading the word, and collect emails from those who might be interested. With Wix.com, this step of creating a website is especially easy. With their AI site builder, you can just answer a few questions and get a personalized, business-ready site fast. Or choose from over 2,000 designer-made templates that are also fully customizable. It's all drag and drop with AI options. Wix knows what it takes to run your own business and gives you all the tools you need to showcase your idea or actual business in the best and fastest way possible. Having a great website does not mean you need to spend a ton of time on it. Ready to create your own website? Go to Wix.com. That's Wix.com to start building your website today. Thanks to Wix for sponsoring our show. Now, back to the news. The U.S. House has declared this to be Crypto Week. The Republicans in charge are trying to pass 3 crypto-friendly bills. That includes one that already passed the Senate called the Genius Act. It would, for the first time, set up a regulatory framework for the $250 billion stablecoin market. Remember, stablecoins are a type of cryptocurrency tied to the value of an asset like the U.S. dollar. And basically, the bill creates a pathway for private companies to use digital dollars with the government's blessing. Crypto investors are betting it will pass, too, so Bitcoin rallied to another high on Friday. It has surged nearly 41% in the last 3 months alone and could go even higher if new legislation passes. To be continued. It's now been 1 year since a shooting at a Trump campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, and yesterday senators released their final report into the incident. It says there were unacceptable failures in the Secret Service's planning and response, and it called for more severe disciplinary action. Remember, Trump was a presidential candidate when he was grazed by a bullet. One person in the crowd was shot and killed, and 2 others were hurt. Well, this new report says the Secret Service knew about the shooter for 45 minutes before any shots were fired and still failed to stop him. The report blames communication failures and negligence. It also notes instances leading up to the rally in which the Secret Service either denied or didn't respond to requests for extra resources to support Trump during his campaign. In response, the Secret Service director says changes have already been made over the last year to address the issues, but that the agency will still work with Congress and President Trump to improve. A doctor accused of destroying more than $28,000 worth of COVID-19 vaccines is now being embraced by the Trump administration. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi dropped the criminal case against him, saying all he did was give his patients a choice when the government refused to do so. And Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said the doctor, quote, deserves a medal for his courage and his commitment to healing. Even as other medical professionals say his actions were illegal and unethical and damaged trust in public health programs. Besides destroying the real shots, the doctor is accused of giving children saline shots at their parents' request so they would think they were getting COVID-19 vaccines. Then he would allegedly sell fake COVID-19 vaccination cards for $50 each. In the end, he pocketed nearly $100,000. The doctor had been pleading guilty. He was currently on trial and could have spent years in prison. Now it seems his legal battles are over. T-Mobile has gotten the go-ahead to buy U.S. Cellular. The FCC allowed the acquisition after T-Mobile promised to remove diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The Justice Department had also decided not to challenge the deal on antitrust grounds. So at this point, the $4.4 billion deal is in motion. T-Mobile is already the largest U.S. wireless carrier, and this deal gives it 4.5 million more customers across 21 states, plus all of U.S. Cellular's stores and 30% of its spectrum assets. The FCC says it will be good for customers, especially U.S. Cellular customers, since the regional carrier couldn't keep up the quality of its network. Separately, the FCC approved a deal to let T-Mobile buy fiber optic internet service provider Metronet. Under the Trump administration, regulators have actually cleared several multi-billion-dollar deals, marking a shift from President Biden's tough stance on corporate consolidation. Even more mergers are expected to be greenlit soon. Young athletes seem to be taking over tennis. 2 Gen Z tennis players won the Wimbledon championship over the weekend. First on the women's side, 24-year-old Iga Swiatek won her first major on a grass court. And that means she's now the youngest player to conquer all 3 surfaces since Serena Williams in 2002. As for the men, 23-year-old Jannik Sinner defeated the 2-time defending champion Carlos Alcaraz. It was the reverse of their epic French Open final last month. But just getting to the Wimbledon finals was historic for Sinner. It made him the youngest player of the Open era to reach 4 consecutive major finals. It also marked a generational shift, since it's the first time since 2002 there was a final without Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, or Murray. Together, Sinner and Alcaraz have combined to win the past 7 Grand Slam trophies, and analysts say this could be the next great rivalry. In soccer, the FIFA Club World Cup came to an end over the weekend, with Chelsea pulling off a shocking win over Paris Saint-Germain. PSG were already European champions this year, so many fans expected them to win this tournament too. But Chelsea also had an impressive season and is expected to have another good one ahead. The U.S. hosted this year's tournament, which was also seen as a test ahead of next year's World Cup. And there were some missteps. For example, there were midday kickoffs meant to fit the timing for European television, but that left players and fans playing in 100-degree heat in cities like Miami. Plus, many fans canceled trips to see their teams play out of immigration fears, especially after U.S. Customs and Border Protection posted a message saying agents were suited and booted for security. And it seemed ticket prices were too high at the start of the tournament, with a lot of empty rows, before FIFA decided to slash prices dramatically. In the end, the final happened in front of a sellout crowd, and FIFA called it an overwhelming success. That's it for the main news, so now it's time for Money Monday, when we talk about one interesting money-related news story. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsor, Fatty15. As I've watched some loved ones get older, it's made me think more about what I can do now to take care of my health even more for later. One way my husband and I are now working on our long-term health and wellness is by taking C15 from Fatty15. Based on over 100 studies, reports say C15 strengthens our cells and is a key longevity-enhancing nutrient, which helps to slow biological aging at the cellular level. In fact, when our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and age faster. And when our cells age, our bodies age too. Fatty15 is a science-backed, award-winning, vegan, 100% pure C15 supplement that is free of flavors, fillers, allergens, and preservatives. It's truly the easiest pill to take because it's nice and small and there's no weird taste or aftertaste, so it's great. And it's replaced my need to take omega-3 or fish oil, since it's said to have 3 times more cellular benefits. Fatty15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help you live healthier longer. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/newsworthy and using code newsworthy at checkout. Now, back to Money Monday. So what does it take to be considered wealthy these days? According to a Charles Schwab survey, it takes $2.3 million. More than 2,000 Americans were surveyed ages 21 to 75, and they pinpointed the multi-million-dollar figure. Besides being wealthy, the same survey asked how much money it would take to be financially comfortable. To that, people who responded said about $839,000. So what's the difference? Well, Charles Schwab says the concept of wealth can feel more distant to people, or even aspirational, whereas financial comfort is something people might see as being more tangible. Still, most Americans are not even close. The median wealth per U.S. adult last year was about $124,000. Thank you so much for joining us today and for your support of the show. We'll be back with even more news to know tomorrow. For now, have a great day.